At Redlands Camera Club, we think it's important for our members to know as much as possible about the process of competing. And an important part of that process is understanding what's going through the judges' minds as they view your image, evaluate it, come up with a score, and when possible, verbal comments suggesting how the image can be improved. We go by a set of guidelines called the elements of a competition image. Now you can find these on the Camera Club's website with detailed information about each of the elements. I won't attempt to go through all the details of the elements here, but I do want to discuss them briefly. The first element that a judge considers is visual impact. It's not just first, it's also the most important. When your image comes up on the big screen or the judge's monitor, you want them to instantly be gobsmacked by the power of the image. The second element is creativity. What have you done to create this image that goes beyond what someone else might have? Style. Is this a good expression of your personal style? Composition. And here we're not looking for some textbook rules of composition. Rather, we're looking for the principles of composition, which simply mean, do the elements within the image fit well together? Do they complement each other? Color harmony, if it's a color image. Tonal harmony, if it's a black and white image. The next element is the center of interest, which, if you'll remember back to the principles of composition, is often not in the center of the image. But the center of interest should declare itself strongly without being the only element of the image. There are supporting elements as well. But the center of interest is where your eye should be drawn first. The use of light. Even if you're shooting a landscape in all natural light, how the maker uses that light is an important element of a successful competition image. For example, shooting at noon when the light is from overhead, casts deep shadows, and is the least interesting of the times of light for most purposes. There is an exception I'll talk about in a second. But shooting it in the middle of the day is not typically the best time for color photography. The golden hour in the morning, before, during, and slightly after sunrise, and in the evening before, during, and after sunset, a surprisingly long time after sunset in many cases, is the most complementary time of light if you're using natural light. If you're using artificial light, there's a world of difference between, for example, turning on the flash that's built into your camera or using external light sources and creating more pleasant modeling. I did mention that there was one exception to the noon don't use rule, and that is infrared. If you're shooting infrared, around noon is actually the best time to get the most dramatic infrared effects. The next element is the subject matter. Following that, we have the image's storytelling abilities. Now, this is particularly important in the category of photojournalism, but in many categories, storytelling is an ingredient that can make a picture better. Presentation. If you think back a few years to the days of film and the use of prints for display and for competition, there is a difference between just putting a print up and putting a print up in a mat and maybe a frame. And we can do an equivalent of that with digital image presentation. You can create the effect of a window mat. You can choose the color of the mat, or multiple mats if you choose. You can even simulate a frame if you want to. You don't have to do any of these things, and some images stand up very well all by themselves, but many images do benefit from a well thought out presentation. Technical excellence, you'll notice, is the last of the elements of a competition image. One of the reasons for that is that our equipment is so good and our techniques are so refined today that technical excellence is something we can take for granted. Is it going to be sharp where it's supposed to be sharp? Is it going to be less sharp where it would be distracting to be sharp? Is the exposure going to be correct? Will the color balance be appropriate? All of these things make up the thing we call technical excellence. And an image that lacks technical excellence, that is not quite sharp, for example, is guaranteed not to do well in competition. If you have an image that kind of misses the mark technically, you might want to consider the whole idea of entering it in competition, because nowadays your competition is going to be very excellent images. And if yours isn't up there, it's not going to be competitive. Now, once a judge has analyzed each of these elements, and obviously this happens in a matter of seconds, then the judge will go on to decide where the image should score. And the judge doesn't come up with a number. First of all, the judge comes up with a category of scoring. There is the exceptional category, and this is very rare. An image that is head and shoulders above the others in the competition may very well be eligible for a score somewhere between 95 and 99. So the process for the judge, when he or she sees an exceptional image, then having decided the category of the score, then assigns a score somewhere between 95 and 99. Why 100, you might ask? Well, it is possible for an image to get 100. Doesn't happen often, but it does happen. The reason for the 99 is that most scoring systems will only go to 99. However, if the judges see an image that is so absolutely exceptional, above all others, that it deserves a score of 100, they can discuss that and can actually award a 100 score, whether the scoring machine allows that or not. If an image is not quite exceptional, but is outstanding, then having decided that, the judge will look for a number between 90 and 94 to award that image. An excellent image is one that would deserve a score between 85 and 89. An above average image would receive a score between 80 and 84. An image that is merely average deserves a score of 75 to 79, and an image that is below average will get a score less than 75. Like a score of 100, scores below 75 are uncommon, particularly in Redlands Camera Club competitions, because the level of the skill of our members submitting images is very high. So each individual judge goes through this entire process, evaluating the elements of a competition image, deciding the scoring category that an image goes into, and then assigning a score. Each judge does this individually. We use panels of typically 3 judges, and then the 3 scores are averaged out, and that score, that averaged score, is announced as the provisional or preliminary score for the image. The reason that's a preliminary score is because in averaging the 3 scores, the scoring process does not go into decimal places, but our excuse me, our image comp chair does take that into effect in the final score. And so that two images that each got 87, for example, might in the final analysis come out to be an 86.8 and an 87.3, in which case those two images that seem to be tied wouldn't be tied at all because they didn't each get 87. One got 86.7, the other got 87.3. And so that's the way it works. We do not break ties when ties do occur, with one exception. That one exception is for the best of show. And if there is a tie for best of show, the judges will break that tie. For all other awards, ties are not broken because we can award multiple awards of the same ribbon. And that's the basic process of how your image gets a score in image competition.